Good evening, everyone. This is Radio Free Mormon. Welcome to Mormonism Live with my great co-host, Bill Reel. Tonight's show is titled Turning Faith into a Fortune, the Religion Business. We have with us tonight Nathan Apffel, who is the director, creator of a 7-episode documentary miniseries that has just dropped and is available for viewing. And on top of that, they're going to be having a premiere in Salt Lake City this Friday evening on July 25th, 2025. Here to tell us all about it is Nathan Apffel and also his partner, Chris Ayoub.
It's great to be here,
guys.
It's so good to see you. So there's Nathan, there's Chris. Nathan, you were here 4 months ago when we were talking about this originally, but now the date is upon us. 4 years have gone, 4 months, excuse me. 4 months have gone by. And what I want to frame this episode around is going to be what's been happening since we talked last in the last 4 months. I understand a lot's been going on. And then also we've got a bunch of great clips that we're going to play for the audience and let you set them up so you can tell us what's going on and we'll understand what's happening. Chris, can I ask you something?
Yes, sir.
Chris, first off, welcome to Mormonism Live. It's great to have you on the show, sir.
Good to be here, sir.
How on earth did you get involved with this guy, Nathan?
Well, I prior to this, I was the president of a national real estate management firm, and a friend of mine, guy I met in the industry, when I exited that business, I was looking for what did I want to do next? I wanted to do something that was good for humanity and something that, I wasn't controlled by some board of directors telling me what I could and couldn't say and everything. I wanted to be able to be, to have the true freedom. And so fortunately I was in a position to do that. And this guy I was friends with said, "Hey, I've got a buddy of mine who's a 2-time Emmy Award winning filmmaker, and he's making this docu-series called The Religion Business." And he introduced me to Nathan. They showed me a trailer that had been worked on, and Nathan was looking for a brother at the time to go through these battles with, and I was like, I am all about this, and I haven't looked back one bit, and it's been an honor to work with Nathan. However the show may do, and it's a wonderful show. I've got a brother for life through this, and it's been awesome.
That's wonderful. What has your part of this been? I understand, Nathan. Let me ask you first off, so you can say hello to people again. They can refresh their recollection on what a good-looking young man you are. And you can tell them about this show just in thumbnail form of what we talked about last time, if that's okay. And how you came up with this idea and how long you've been working on it and how it is you finally got to this point.
Yeah, so thanks for having us. I'm Nathan Apffel. Chris is definitely my partner in the trenches on this one. This has been a 15 years technically in the making. I bought the domain, The Religion Business, when I was 25. So 15 years ago. I started researching 13 years ago. And then we shot the entire show when I was 28. So 12 years ago. I've been making, like Chris said, I've been making TV since I was 18.
So all the stuff that you shot, everything that's going to be in this docu-series was shot 12 years ago?
This is all new. Everything that I literally shot, we spent a year filming when I was 28. We took it into edit. I was originally just a documentary guy, so I'd make a 90-minute show or a 120-minute show. It was like really pushing it. My average show was an hour-long TV, so a 44-minute time slot. So that was my bread and butter. It's what I knew. We were in edit, and I just didn't like the way it was going. It felt very ranty, for lack of a better term. I always tell people it was me standing in front of a cinder block wall, just screaming at the cinder blocks. There wasn't any real depth to it outside of just frustration about the lack of accountability inside religious organizations. And I was raised, I would argue it's a megachurch. I've had very interesting conversations about the church I was raised in, but it hit right about 1,800 to 2,000 members. And then as I was raised, as I grew, I was moved into different churches and bigger churches. And so I've been a kid of faith since I was in a crib. I was raised in a church similar to most of my cousins who were raised LDS. And so it was just, I was born into the system. And it wasn't until my early 20s where I started traveling the world for TV. I would travel about 9 months of the year. And I'd go to really remote regions. So mostly developing nations. And I would always go visit churches or seminaries in these developing nations. And I would have the most amazing experience on dirt floors and no windows and tin roofs and, no electricity. And I'd come back and walk into my church with a $30 million a year budget. And I'm like, what are we doing here? That's where the religion business came about. And then there was some major sexual abuse that went down in my church that involved children. And that's where I was like, okay, this whole system is primed for failure. So let's dissect it. And so that's when 15 years ago, I bought the domain, and 12 years ago, I shot the show, and I ended up putting it on the shelf because I just didn't like it. And I got back into TV. I had a daughter. I finally decided to read the Bible, cover to cover. And I was like, wow, this book is a lot different than what I'm hearing from that stage. And then
from which stage?
The church stage, the pulpit, from the pulpit. And so for about 7 years, I just researched. I did 8 passes through the Bible. I read through the Apocrypha and all the supporting early apostolic literature. And then as I would travel, I would kind of steer my trips around going to really unique cathedrals like Canterbury and the Vatican. And I really started to get a handle on early Christianity, early Judaism. And I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to actually step out. So about 3.5 years ago, I decided to take the resources I had. And I'm like, okay, I'm starting up the religion businesses again. I felt the time was right. I felt I was 37 at the time. I'm like, okay, I'm a little wiser. I got a decade under my belt since the first pass. And in the first interview, ironically, was with a gentleman named Carl Trueman, who's a Reformation thought expert out of England, like one of the leading scholars on Martin Luther and the Reformation. And I just emailed him. I just was like, hey, I'm going to email this guy. Within minutes, he texted me back or emailed me back. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is it. So I flew to Pennsylvania and shot an interview with him that ended up being almost 6.5 hours. And the beautiful part is when I listen to that interview now, my questions were so juvenile. And I'm a novice. And so that's what's so fun in the show is you feel this journey and you go on this journey with me to where I start as a novice with no education. And then by the end of it, I'm sitting across the table with philosophers with 2 PhDs, and I can debate philosophers, that are far more educated than me. And so the growth curve, the education curve has been amazing. And we landed on 7 episodes because the material is so robust and there's so much data we have to get through and investigation we have to get through. So yeah, it's clocked in at about 6.5 hours, which is crazy.
What is the general description of all 7 of your episodes together?
Ooh, the general description. We've built an institution on the back of this historical figure, Jesus, and that institution has no accountability within the system. And so the system's going to buckle. I would say that's the pitch. So how do we how do we bring accountability into the system? Because here's the positive. The Christian church has enough resources to radically transform the world literally overnight. We just have to be better stewards of those resources. 55% of the world's wealth is owned by self-professing Christians. Like, if we really followed this guy Christ, the world would look different. And so that's what the show's about is, hey, why, if we call ourselves a Christian, if we follow Christ, let's get back to his principles as opposed to living off these corrupt principles of an institution that we call, the house of God. Because it is definitely not the house of God.
That's why you need to listen to what I tell you Jesus said, instead of reading the Bible yourself and coming to your own conclusions.
Oh, you don't need to read that book. Just listen to me. I'll tell you what it says. And give me your money at the same time.
Well, I'm not doing this for free. Okay. So let me see here. Where are we in this? So it's been the last 4 months. What has happened in the last 4 months? First off, when you were on 4 months ago, I believe that you thought that this was going to drop by Easter. So there's been a delay of several months. What's behind that?
A couple factors. I produce for one of the big studios. I have a back-end producing portal for one of the studios. But we were looking at a deal. We wanted to sign with one of the biggest, one of the top 2 streamers in the world. And we were going down that path, and we had a producing partner at one of the studios, an internal producer reached out to us and they said, hey, we'd encourage you, like as a friend to friend, don't sign the deal. Don't sell it to a single streamer because they'll shelve it. And what that means in the industry is basically like, hey, I'd rather buy your show and put it on the shelf and let no one ever see it than let it release, because it's going to cannibalize assets that we have, whether that be The Chosen or the House of David. And right now, Christian content is a very popular revenue stream for the streamers. And some would argue that the religion business might cannibalize that because, number one, we're saying something antithetical to a lot of what these big shows are. And then it might turn people away from supporting those shows. So they'd rather grab the show, shelve it, let no one see it. And so at that point, we put the brakes on everything. We said, we're not going to sign with the streamer. And what we're going to do is we got to build our own platform, because the only way we can make sure that the show is never shelved is if we launch it first on our own platform, which is thereligionbusiness.com. And then once it sits and saturates a little bit, then we can put it on a bunch of different streamers. And at that point, they're going to say, hey, we'd rather make the ad revenue off of it because it's not our show. So yeah, put it on our platform. It's already out there in the world. We'll make our ad revenue and say la vie to the single deal.
Is that what they used to call catch and kill with news stories?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You try to get an exclusive news story and pay for it and then not publish it intentionally to hide it?
Correct. Yeah. So it's the same game in regards to show distribution. And so we ended up having to take a couple months, and we've literally, not we, but our genius developers have literally built the infrastructure of Netflix. And so we now have our own proprietary playing platform. And so we can put future shows on there. And it's basically just a way to make sure.
Your own platform now.
We do. That's at thereligionbusiness.com.
Can you tell us about that, Chris? Because I know a lot of people in our audience would like to go there and watch this.
Yeah. So if you go to thereligionbusiness.com, you can stream directly from there. We also, Nathan and I built a software application that you can also access called Broken Shepherds. And it's in its early stages where nonprofits are able to engage with donors and donors are able to engage with nonprofits. And it's a transparency and engagement platform as well as a volunteer platform. So the nonprofits provide their financial data and other pertinent questions we ask them. They get a light rating, transparency rating based on, we're not here to say, oh, a pastor is supposed to make X or Y. That's for we're putting the power back into the donor's hands as it should be. So they get fed certain information. We give them a rating. They're able to look at their transparent data and make a decision right then and there, whether or not they want to donate to this organization or not. And so we really feel like this is an answer to when Nathan did this, all his due diligence in this space, and you'll see it in the docuseries that you've got pulled up here at thereligionbusiness.com. There's 10 loopholes that Nathan discovered, and this application that we created is there to shine a light into those loopholes to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse and inurement from happening in the first place. So that's a good 30-second elevator pitch on where it's at. But please go to thereligionbusiness.com and check out the docuseries and download Broken Shepherds and check out the application as well too. We have several nonprofits in there now that are wanting to be the light. They're wanting to be very transparent with everyone, and they're doing some amazing work. A couple of them were in our docuseries as well too.
What is the transparency? I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Can I pipe in for just a second? There are lots of unhealthy people out there that if they're given the chance to take advantage of things and gain more power, wealth, influence, they're going to do that. It really is up to the congregation or the church board of directors. It really is up to the groups that manage it or the members of those faiths to impose that such things be implemented so as to safeguard unhealthy people from being able to have easy loopholes to do things, right?
Well, the wicked, a very wise man says the wicked loves the dark and doesn't love the light. And this is the darkest industry. I'm a businessman. I mean, I've seen several industries. This is such a dark industry. When a religious nonprofit, unlike a secular nonprofit, doesn't turn any documentation in the IRS, it's a complete dark hole. And humans will human in that dark hole to the point that you're bringing up, Bill. If there's no transparency into a system, there's no accountability. It's how are you going to hold someone accountable to something you can't see?
Well, and Chris, I'm not a business minded person, but Chris is a brilliant one. And he always says what's measured gets managed. And when you don't measure anything and you don't measure billions coming in, you can't manage those billions and they just disappear.
That's actually a principle I've heard several times in Mormon church meetings.
Really? What's measured gets managed?
Well, yeah. You got to measure things before you can improve.
Well,
Something has to be measured in order for it to improve. And it usually has to do with either home teaching or missionary discussions.
But so to Bill's point, our argument is the congregant needs to measure it. You give the power to the people actually paying for it, and they'll be the judge. And if they're educated, they'll make the right decisions, whether that be they leave your church or stop giving or give more. It's like give them the power. But right now there's no power in the congregant's hand. It's all in this elite top level.
Yes.
Which sounds a lot like the Vatican back in the day, by the way.
What is the transparency rating on the Mormon church, by the way? Have you done that one? Have you run the numbers on that one?
No, they have to. Well, I'd give it a 0 out of 10. Widow's Mite. I'd give Widow's Mite a good rating. They've crushed it. But here's the bedrock of religion in America, and I always tell people the religion business looks at the bedrock. We're not here to be the arbiter of this pastor should make X or this pastor should make Y. We don't care, to be honest. Like, give the power to the people, but you have to look at the bedrock, and the bedrock is the legal architecture in the US. And so when you look at that legal architecture, because of this idea of separation of church and state, the government can't demand accountability, which in the nonprofit space is the 990, the Form 990. Since religious organizations do not file that document is a legally binding document. And so they could, like, if I lie on that document and I get caught, I'm in trouble, and there's legal ramifications to my lie. But here's the thing. Even if the Mormon church said, hey, guys, here's our financials, I don't know if those are accurate or true. Like, you could doctor whatever you want on that form and say, hey, here's what we did this year, and put it in front of me, because I can't see the bank records. There's no 990 to hold it to account.
The documents to show it.
Yeah. Well, and so
at $1 million.
Yeah. My favorite is the pie chart. Whenever a big organization says, hey, here's where your $50 million went, and there's like 3 little colors in the pie chart. You're like, what is that? You spent 25 million on ministry. I don't even know what that is. Is that your private jet? Is that your beachfront home in Florida? Like,
ministry is a wonderfully elastic term,
yes.
Which is why the Mormons have adopted it in the last several years. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah. Now everybody's a freaking minister. We got ministers coming out the yin yang. We never had a minister before the last 10 years, I swear to you. And it wasn't a verb that we used. Now, instead of home teaching, it's ministering.
Yeah. Anything's ministry, right? And so we call it a slush fund. It's basically when the church runs their numbers, and, like, let's say they have $100 million in revenue. They're like, okay, 40 million went to salaries and building expenses and all that. Well, we'll just scrape that 60 million into ministry, and that's that huge chunk in that pie chart. And that's the clothing allowances, and at least in the non-denominational space, that's the housing allowances, the car allowances. That's just everything that's building the kingdom of God.
It's hard to start getting all that money it's hard for a person to start getting all that money and not start thinking that they're worth it.
100%.
Yeah.
It's human nature.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
deserve this. I deserve these fancy clothes and these $1,000 suits and these limousines and the jets. God wants me to have this.
You're blessed. You're blessed, my man. You're blessed.
Well, I had a really interesting
more money to me.
Yeah. I was just on the phone with one of the biggest non-denominational Christian pastors of the last 20 years. Really interesting guy. And he watched the series, and he's like, man, Nathan, I really wanted to hate you. He's like, I did not want to like you. And he's like, but your argument is super sound and reasonable. He's like, I'm telling everybody now, Nathan actually really loves the church. Like, he likes this guy, Jesus. Like, you can't hate on him. And he goes, there's only one question you need to ask any pastor or person in leadership at a religious organization. What's your salary? Like, and they're going to say, oh, well, I can't, there's no reason why you should know. Well,
they're going to arrest you. They're going to
everybody in the corporate world you know their salary in the for-profit world, in the publicly traded world, in the nonprofit world, you know. But so why do you get this one weird carve out? And they have no answer. And so he's like, just ask that one simple question, what's your salary? And we do in the show. And I mean, like, you ask that question and they have 20 armed goons surround you and arrest you because you asked that question, you know?
Well, they're not talking about it much in the Mormon church either.
Yeah. Well, because their excuse is usually, at least to the layman that I've heard, is, oh, there's no salaries in the Mormon church. So that's like that's the standard word on the street at the moment.
There has never been any statement or confirmation of any dollar amount for the general authorities by the LDS church, I believe. If I'm wrong, correct me in the live chat, but I'm pretty sure the Widow's Mite has done an incredible job.
They have.
Of taking the information that is available and using their skills, their certain set of skills to figure out what that means and where that's going, what that indicates and what it shows. But I don't think, and so we have a pretty good idea is probably what their base salary is for the apostles and the general authorities.
But
they've never said how much.
But that doesn't include the health insurance, the first class flights, the free vehicles, the housing, because these guys all start off as paupers. Well, I shouldn't say that. Some of them start off as really wealthy lawyers and airplane pilots and that kind of thing. But some of these guys start off as paupers and they end up with 4 or 5 houses by the time their time in the church is done. And one has to wonder how they get there.
Sounds like some politicians.
Yeah.
You know?
It does, doesn't it?
I think the problem is far deeper than that too. I mean, when you've got a $160 billion plus investment fund, the people managing that money are making a ton of money, and then you have to follow the money. You know, the LDS church spends a lot of money on, you know, if you look at like buildings and acquiring land and lots and lots of business ventures that are outside the norm of an institutional church. Who's winning those contracts? Who are they buying? You know, who's receiving the money? You have to follow the money all the way through to have a real complete picture of that. And I think you'll have a lot more answers when you do that.
Oh, are you saying like who wins the construction contract of that?
Oh yeah, yeah. As an example, and who, you know, and who's representing the real estate transactions, and who's the title companies, and who are follow the money all the way down through, and you'll see how that money is being utilized and such. So it's far deeper than what is someone's salary.
Okay, so tell us about Friday, would you? We don't want to miss that. Friday, there's a premiere in Salt Lake City, right?
Yes, AMC West Jordan 12. We're having two showings. So the first one, anytime between 5:15 and 6 o'clock, show up. We're gonna have a red carpet type of event there. We'll have a step and repeat. You'll get Nathan and I would love a chance to meet with you, whether you like us or not. We'd love a chance to speak with you and meet with you. And then we'll go back to the theater. We'll watch an episode. Nathan and I will do a Q&A, and that'll wrap up. The episode will start around 6 o'clock. And then we'll wrap up with a Q&A. And then the next round of we'll go, you know, around 7:15. We'll have another red carpet for the second premiere at AMC West Jordan 12, and then we'll go back to watch another episode at 8 o'clock, and then that'll wrap up, and we'll do another Q&A right after that, and everything will be wrapped up by 9 o'clock. So 6 o'clock showing, arrive 30 minutes earlier for an opportunity for us to meet with you, step and repeat, and then another one again at 8 o'clock. Again, arrive 30-40 minutes early, and we'd love a chance to meet and engage with you. You can get tickets on Eventbrite, and I think you'll have the QR codes here. And then if you're on Instagram and you don't have access to all this, follow us it's The Religion Business. It's at Religion Business, and you'll have an opportunity to click on the links in the bio to get tickets. And if you cannot afford, the tickets are $12. This isn't a money-making event but for us by any means. If you cannot afford to buy the $12 ticket, just DM us, and we'll make sure you get a ticket for free. This isn't a money-making event. We want to meet as many people as possible, whether you agree with us or not.
we're screening episode 3, which highlights the LDS Church.
Yes, my favorite. That's my favorite church. By the way, that was before we started the show that you were mentioning your work at BYU today, right, Nathan?
Oh yeah. We took, sometimes so Eventbrite would not let us promote the premiere. So we're hitting a lot of headwinds in regards to social platforms. And so they would not let us.
That?
We have our gut. And then we've had intel delivered to us that, religious organizations are big ad buyers on social platforms. They spend a lot of money promoting their pastors, promoting their books, promoting their churches on social media. We're little guys. And so if we're a thorn in their side, they'll remove access to us. So we can't share stories across profiles. We can't promote the premieres. And so there's just a lot of stuff going on in the background, and it shows that we're asking the right questions, because really, really big organizations are terrified of what we're doing. And we're just a small group of really passionate individuals. So to your point, since we can't promote in Salt Lake on Eventbrite, Chris and I were thinking, man, how do we get the word out? So I printed out 2,000 flyers and showed up at BYU today, and we put 1,000 plus flyers on administrators' cars, and we went to the Bean Museum and put them. Every car around that museum got a flyer, and we just had fun. We talked to a lot of people. We talked to law professors walking out. We talked to marketing kids walking out of their marketing. It was just awesome, and nobody balked at us. They were all very interested, actually. And one professor, I think he was a history professor. He's like, I'm going to tell my whole class about this tomorrow. And so, it's if you've got an open mind and you're willing to question things and question systems, you're going to be interested in it. So it was wildly entertaining. I'm very sunburned because I walked around 100 degrees Salt Lake. Yeah. I'm glowing right now. But yeah, so it was fun. It was security never kicked us out. They were quite sweet.
Was there any issue about security that's happened in the last 4 months? I think we talked about that a little bit this morning too.
Yeah, there has been. So I won't even get into which specific pastor or anything like that, out of respect for folks that came out and reached out to us. But one pastor in particular spent an inordinate amount of money doing due diligence on us, about close to $100,000 is what we were told. I've been personally followed. There was talk about putting a hit out on me. There was those types of discussions. It's nasty. It's a mafioso type thing. But then I also had to look back to when Jesus walked in and started flipping tables. They started plotting his death after that too. So this shouldn't surprise me one bit or one iota. And then one of the people that was exposed in one of the episodes, his nephew came at me at an event in Dallas and such, and my security team
what do you mean
had to
came
intervene.
Came at you? Breached the security line?
So just started screaming things at me, and then stepped up towards me, approached me physically with raging anger, and then one of my security team members stepped in to it. And look, I'm a combat sports athlete. Like, I can hold my own, defend myself, but I'm not trying to, I don't want to do any of that. Like, the whole genesis of this type of conversation was that Nathan and I love everyone, to include our enemies, and we were called to do that. It's Matthew 5, very clear. It doesn't make it easy, but it's easier for me to love Nathan. He's my brother. It's easy for me to love you guys because we're very aligned on this. But when you hate me and you're talking about putting a hit on me and you're talking about all sorts of things like that, I pray for those people and I still love them, even though it's really hard to. And that really rubs people the wrong way.
Oh, what? Loving them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I make it easy on them. I just hate them. Because I'm merciful.
Exactly.
It's more merciful to hate.
Hey, but my flesh wants to hate him. My flesh wants to retaliate. But I have to deny myself and listen to what Jesus said and, what our creator's telling us. So
Yeah,
it's not
spent
easy.
25 years denying myself. It's called Mormonism. Hey, everybody. Everybody, I want to see you get arrested, Nathan, because I made that comment earlier, and I know Chris got it because he laughed. But we've got the first video. We got a bunch of clips here. And the first video does have to do with you getting arrested because you're asking about how much a certain minister or pastor made as a salary, right? And
Correct.
you say that's the key question. That's the question to ask.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to give a little context to this clip, there was a year of due diligence leading up to this. There was multiple times we reached out just saying, hey, can you send us this data? We're interested in this. Or, we found this house, buried in a bunch of LLCs, and your Instagram shows that you're there. It's not a shack, which I guess he presented to his church that we own a shack on the water in the Florida Keys. It's a $10.4 million home. It's a mansion on the beach on the Keys. It has its own fishing dock, and this guy loves to fish. And so this was the last resort. I called their lawyer. They didn't respond to the call, their general counsel, who's also the CFO, by the way. So the church's lawyer is the CFO. So you're kind of, I'd call that a conflict of interest. But so I called him and said, hey, I'm in town. I'm coming to church if you don't respond, because this is my last straw. So this is me showing up to church after they had turned down my request for information multiple times.
Okay, so let me see if I can go ahead and get this up here on the screen.
Yep.
And we'll play this. Are you trying to play this, Bill?
I can push play on it and it will play, I think.
Because I think we're at cross purposes at this point. I was trying to do it as well. I know that I don't usually, and you do, so I was confusing you.
I don't see.
Go ahead.
I don't see the sound on the. Okay, I do now on the sound on the one that you had. Okay, we can do that.
Okay, I'll give it a go. Me?
Yeah, you should be able to hit play on that, can't you?
Okay. But hang on a second.
Here we go.
Let me see here.
How was church? Great. Awesome. How was the sermon? Good. Do you guys know Ed's housing allowance? You wouldn't know? Dang it. Do you know who I could ask?
Weren't you guys just asked to leave the property?
No, we were asked to leave, but not criminally trespass, no.
Okay. Police department's headed here now, so if y'all want to wait for them, that'd be great.
Well, we just have a couple questions.
You're welcome to stand right here.
Okay. We'll stand right here. Good, how are you?
This is private property.
Okay.
If you guys could come this way. Yeah.
Well, I just want to talk to Ed.
Oh, no, you know what? Actually, where's our law enforcement? In fact, you were already warned today. And so just hold tight.
We were told to leave.
Yeah, that was our Tarrant County police officers.
Okay. Is that, do you guys pay them, or are they on police?
If you just hold tight right here. Is Bob Theodore on the way? Okay, great. Awesome. Great. We're so glad you guys are back.
Thanks. Yeah. I donated, so I kind of have a couple questions about Ed's. That doesn't matter. Donors' money doesn't matter. Accountability doesn't matter.
Say again.
Accountability doesn't matter.
Where are you from?
U.S.
Awesome.
Utah. Yeah. Florida. No. There's a house in Florida, though, that I'm really interested in. Yeah. I think your boy might own it.
Hey, Bob, real quick.
Hey, Bob. How you doing? Good to see you, Bob Theodore. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, right this way.
Right. Which way? I want to talk to someone.
You are going to be placed under arrest for criminal trespass because we've already given you. Well, you're going to be placed under arrest.
Okay. Well, don't touch me, please.
Hand your stuff to them.
No, these are my signs.
You're going to be
They're my
detained.
sign. This is my property, sir.
We're on private property.
What?
We're on private.
This is my property. You can't take people's property on
You have
private
been
property.
warned for criminal trespass. You are being detained.
Hey, my elbow is, I have a damaged elbow, so this is not nice.
Okay.
Don't take why would you take my phone? So, I have a question about salaries and housing allowances, and this is how they treat people. They don't respond to emails. They don't respond to calls.
Get away from the property.
Because why? Is it making you look bad? Is it making the church look bad? Sir, you don't need to wrench down on that from my wrist.
Just have a seat right here.
Okay, I can stand. This hurts so bad, I won't be able to sit until that one's a little loosened.
Look at them all. Here they come, the cavalry.
So I asked Todd, and then I asked Scott Weasel if there was a person in the church that I could talk to, because no one's ever responded. I've called Dennis Brewer Jr. I just can't believe a lawyer gets ordained and then becomes the CFO, a lawyer who's the general counsel. That's called a conflict of interest. So you have the general counsel of a church running the books and then taking it over. He's the general counsel. And did you know that Dennis Brewer Jr.'s dad was Kenneth Copeland's lawyer? So literally lawyers are passing down knowledge on how to scam people from generation to generation, just like pastors are passing down knowledge from generation to generation on how to build an audience like this. Christ literally walked and sat with the needy, the poor, the widowed, the orphaned, and here he is. We saw his Range Rover jet off, jumped curbs to get out. He doesn't even want to be seen by people. He's not a pastor. He's a really good celebrity and a really good speaker and a really good presenter, but he's not a pastor. He's a businessman. And the crazy part is they wave the flag of Jesus and salvation and faith on top of that, and then they get away with literally anything they want. There's a house in Florida. Tell Ed there's a house in Florida we know about. We have all the LLC structures. So, and I'm just interested because his mortgage here is probably close to $71,000 for his Dallas home. What's the mortgage for the property in Florida? That's 1.5 times more expensive. This dude's got 15 million in real estate. They live like kings. And here you are, I'm the threat because I asked what his housing allowance is. I get it. You guys are all employed. You make money off of this. But at some point, accountability needs to be brought into this system or the whole system's going to collapse. And Christ's image with it. This is not church. This is an institution built on top of Jesus. That's a business, that's a brand, and that needs to be held accountable.
I can't hear you, RFM.
So, wow, you got a mouth on you, Nathan.
I've been told. Oh yeah.
Looks like John Travolta was out there too.
Oh yeah. They always, it's really interesting. We had an interaction at another, one of the most well-known pastors' churches in the US.
Can you tell us who?
Kenneth Copeland.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's got his own private airport named after him on the church property, and, you know, has a 19,000 square foot lakefront parsonage. And yeah, he's a character. But yeah, same exact thing. Like there's always, I feel like they pick a Hollywood celebrity, that these security guards pick a celebrity they want to look like, and they just slowly kind of morph into that character.
You knew
and it's
who I was
always like a
talking about,
badass
didn't you?
character.
The guy with the sculptured thing there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm having trouble putting the words 19,000 square foot and parsonage in the same sentence.
Correct. Yeah. It's you know, it's a small, you know, lakefront home that he and his wife live in, 19,000 square feet. We actually were the first people ever to make it to the house because there's multiple gates to get there. There was someone from the press that tried to get there by boat once on the lake, and they were met with armed security. And so we were the first team to ever make it to the house. Well, we made it to the last gate in front of the house, so about 200 yards away. He also has his own high fenced deer hunting setup on the church property as well. So God's gifted him with his own high fenced hunting ranch.
Yeah, he's blessed.
Yeah, he's a blessed dude.
Wow. This sounds like an Area 51 moment.
It was interesting. Yeah. Ironically, we didn't know what we were getting into. And so, but one gate had been left open. It looked like there was rain runoff that kept the gate from closing. So I'm like, we'll just drive through this gate. And you learn about this in the show. You see topo maps of his property because it was originally close to 2,000 acres, this church property. And it's his compound. You know, it's got his TV station on it and his radio station and the parsonage and a very small church. When you think of Kenneth Copeland, it's a very small church. So the actual apparatus is more of a TV network and a radio station than a church itself. But yeah, so we just went through this one closed open gate and we had no idea what was happening. And this is why I do think there's a God. And then boom, there's another gate, 10-foot gate with barbed wire. And I'm like, I don't know how to get into this. And I pull up and the gate just opens. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So the gate just opened for us. So we're on the runway now, driving down the runway. And then boom, we hit another gate. And what happens? We pull up to that gate, barbed wire and everything. that gate starts opening. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening here, but we made it all the way to the house. And then the last gate had a key code. And someone was saying, I saw that episode, it was great. So what we cut out from this scene for time is I end up calling the front desk at the church. And this is a Sunday. And I'm like, hey, we're here. We really would love to see Kenneth and talk to Kenneth. And the guy's name is Abraham. And he's like, okay, like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm at the front gate of Kenneth's house. And he goes, where are you? And I'm like, well, we're at the gate to his house, but I'm like, there's a keypad. Do you know the key code? I'm like, I really want to say hi to Kenneth. And he goes, hold, please. And then he just has me on hold for about 20 minutes. And so I'm like, I honestly don't, and this is what's funny, no security showed up because he's so isolated out here in this system that he's built. So I was like, I was telling the other guys, I'm like, I don't even think they believe we're here. And so I'm like, let's drive back to the runway because at least then security will see us because
we don't have a camera at the front gate.
No camera because it's that isolated. Like you got to drive through his high fence hunting ranch. You got to somehow get onto his tarmac and drive down his private runway. Like it's wild that we got there. So Abraham did not believe me that I was at his front gate. But so we headed back to the runway, and that's when everything went down.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What is the next one that we have set to come up here as far as clips go? Does this ring any bells?
Yeah, this is a development economist in the show. His name's Bruce.
This is the guy I
Whitehead.
thought was you, Chris.
Correct.
Bruce Whitehead, yeah.
And he's about to explain the problem, like the main problem in the nonprofit sector.
Okay.
You need to put up the other one there to the left of that RFM.
And I would have.
I'll add it to the stage. Oop.
It's one of the things that's really frustrating about this for me is that I can't advance the slide. I have to go out and then come back in for it to show up. I can do it like this.
Yeah, and if you'll go to
people can't see it that well.
Yep. So if you
So let's see how this goes.
With a nonprofit, you have the donor and the nonprofit, and then the recipient of the work of the nonprofit is over here. But there's no information flowing between the recipient of the nonprofit's intervention and the donor. And for this reason, donors can keep on donating, and as long as the nonprofit says that it's doing a good job, the donations continue to flow. But we don't know what the impact is because of the relationship that's been severed between the recipient of the nonprofit's work and the donor.
So that is so important to keep in mind. And I have to think about Mormonism. We don't know crap about what happens where the money goes that we tithe and donate, the fast offerings, the offering that we give, and all this other stuff. We're just sort of taking it on faith that it's being used properly.
We have every 6 months, somebody stands up at the general conference pulpit and says, I'm the accountant, head of the accountants that account for these things. Everything's on the up and up. Trust us. But that person was saying that while that whole SEC fiasco was happening in the church and the dummy companies. So those guys are shills for the group, and they're willing to say whatever the leaders tell them to say. There is no real accounting where if those guys are doing something illegal, that guy will stand up and go, hey, everybody, those guys are cheating.
They're fucking
never going to happen.
They're freaking liars. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I forgot. It's Wednesday, not Friday yet.
Well,
on Friday, we have Mormonism After Dark, which is a little bit more loose and F-bomb friendly format. I apologize, everybody, and I hope that I didn't, offend anybody. But what freaking liars. Really? It went on for 20 years. They do that twice a year. That's 40 times. Some schmo gets up there and lies to the people about the finances of the church.
There's an observation that Chris and I have made because since the show's launched and we're 13 days into it, a lot of pastors have actually watched it. And, a couple have wanted to debate me, and I'm like, let's go. We'll do a public debate. I would love that.
Debate about the principle,
tithing, the institution. Like, let's go. I'll eviscerate them.
Yes, you will.
But they believe their lies. Like a pathological liar is someone who believes their lies. And we've seen this now with pastors that reach out because we catch them in lies, and I will call them on it. And they're like, no, I didn't lie. And it's like, no, you deleted this. We see it. Oh, nope, I didn't. Or, oh, I'll debate you. And then, oh man, they'll make up an excuse. And I'm like, wait, that's a lie too. But it's like when you're in a system that allows lies to perpetuate for decades, you just start believing the lies. I can't think of there's a term for it actually, but it's like these leaders, I do believe most of them will stand, at that, whatever the conference, and it's on the up and up, and they believe it's on the up and up. I firmly believe that they believe that I believe that they believe it's believable.
I like to think that we all believe our lies,
because then we have to look at ourselves and say, man, and this is episode 7, because I talk about our realities, and reality is relative. And so if you have to look at your reality and say, man, maybe I have a biased perspective on this, or maybe my leadership actually isn't doing this with the best intentions, then I have to admit that I've believed their lies and that I've actually procured and pushed those lies along. Mm-hmm. And that makes me feel like an idiot, right? I gave to those guys for decades, thousands or millions, some people, of dollars. I'm an idiot. It's very hard to look at yourself in the mirror and call yourself an idiot and have to swallow that pill, And guess what? I'm the first idiot. But it's,
so some people would rather just continue with the deception.
Correct. Yeah.
It's very. Go ahead.
So Bruce Wideck, he calls it strategic ignorance in the show. And so we want to, as humans, we'd rather stay ignorant. And so we do it strategically, because if we learn and we push past our ignorance, we have to question everything we believe in all our systems around us. So we would rather stay strategically ignorant.
Yes. Tell us about this next clip that's in the queue. Now, this one, thank you, Bill, by the way, for taking care of this for me tonight. Yeah. So what's going on here?
So this is before the arrest. And this is a fascinating interaction. This is Scott Weasel right here. He works for the church. He also takes a housing allowance.
Wait a second, Scott, that's his real name?
No, his name's Scott Wilson, but I called him Scott Weasel. I thought it was funny.
I like Weasel.
Yeah, he's a good weasel. I'll say this. He's a great weasel. But yeah, so that morning, it's Sunday morning. This is after I had called their general counsel, and I said, I'm coming to church. I just came to church. A camera operator did not come into the church with me. I just wear my glasses that record. And within 3 minutes of me walking into that church, you'll see it in the actual show. They have me pegged before I even get into the building.
This is your camera in your glasses. So
there's a camera just in my glasses that are recording this. And then I have a wire. And they broke protocol here. So we've talked with the people in their security team, because many have left since then. Everything about these interactions was totally breaking protocol. So, civil rights were violated. They did everything wrong on their end because they want to be cowboys for Jesus. They want to save the institution. From intel that I've gotten from insiders, the way they presented it to the church is there was a psychopath on church today. Thank God we had him arrested. So I was labeled a psychopath. And more recently, I've been labeled a anti-religious extremist, which is not at all what I am. We encourage people's faith, whatever that is. We encourage generous giving. It's just
you're a man of faith, aren't you?
I'm a man of faith. Yeah, I would consider. I'm a Christ
right,
follower.
Chris?
Absolutely. Just to echo what Nathan said. Yeah, what Nathan, we're here to encourage one's faith with God, and we're here to encourage generous giving with transparency. Yeah, and that transparency part is greatly missing in the system.
Yeah. But so I walk in.
People don't like it when you point it out. So what's Weasel doing here?
So this is me just walking in. And I was going to go to their bookstore. I was trying to buy, you'll see. Well, maybe you won't actually. I don't know what the edit this is, but I was trying to buy a book, one of the pastor's designer sweatshirts, because he also has his own clothing line. And then I wanted to get a cup of coffee and go and sit in his church service. And sometimes he'll have a basketball court on stage where he plays basketball. Other times he'll have a life-size great white shark on stage. He's very theatrical.
Or a Bentley.
Or a Ferrari. He's had those on stage as well. But so I just wanted to sit in and see what his shtick was for this Sunday. And
he's going to need a bigger stage.
I don't think so after this. I think he's going to have to downsize.
That was the great white joke. Okay, so you go in here, you're in the bookstore, and then what? You get discovered?
Oh, yeah. So we'll play it. And yeah, this is just, they had me pegged before I even walked through the front door.
Okay.
Nathan, we would like to ask you to leave now.
Why? I give to this church. Like, I'm a member of this church. I pay every week.
Nathan, you're not a member of this church.
Give now. I'm going to give now to Grapevine.
Nathan, you're not a member of this church.
I come here, I tithe. I want to know the financials of this church.
Sure.
Because I'm a giver and I fund all of it.
Well, I'm not answering that question, but what I am asking you to do is to now leave. Will you abide by that request?
You're kicking me off of a religious institution's property.
I'm asking you to leave.
What's up?
It's private.
I get that it's private. Who owns it?
Nathan, we're not answering that question, but what we are.
I don't think you can answer it.
Yeah. So that was after they had broken protocol. He met me in the bookstore. He would not let me buy. I'm like, I want to buy this stuff. And he said, no. He escorted me out. The point of that clip is to show twofold. They will not answer any question. They won't give me a number for who I could talk to in accounting. They won't tell me who owns the building because they can't. And then also you catch the other gentleman when I say who owns it, he's like, I don't know. Like it's the precedent has been passed down for decades now that it's this machine. I call these churches autonomous machines that just control everybody that's a part of it. And no one really knows what they're doing. They're just like, yeah, we're building this thing, you know? And so, yeah, I was very strategic with my language. I said, okay, you won't criminally trespass me because I knew I was about to come back. So they never gave me a legal warning. And so this is where it gets fun is I left the property. As I was leaving, there's an interaction between Scott Weasel and myself. And he said, did you not know that I had opened a dialogue with you and I? But all he did is he Instagram messaged us from his account. And because we had done a post about Ed Young and his Ferrari on stage because he brought his car out. He drove his car out on stage. It was his big show. And he said, I'm a Ferrari. And so that's what we posted. And so they got mad. And all he writes to us on Instagram is cease and desist. And so he's walking me to my car and I'm like, you can't tell me to cease and desist. Like I could tell you to cease and desist right now. Like that holds no water. So it's a funny interaction. I leave. But of course I didn't get my answers. So I'm ready to come back, and I'm like, okay, we're going to wait. We're going to be respectful. We're not going to go in and create a scene in the church. Like we'll just stand in the parking lot and wait. And so that's what happens. And so that was the initial meetup or moment prior to me leaving and then coming back. And then they arrested me.
I saw you in handcuffs sitting on the curb. And were you taken to the station? Were you taken to jail and booked?
Yeah. I spent the night in jail. Yeah.
And you did get charged, right?
I got charged. Yeah. They wanted to throw.
Months ago, we talked and it hadn't been resolved yet. Has it?
It's resolved now. Yeah. They wanted to throw the book at me. They put up things like they wanted the judge to make me wear an ankle bracelet and be drug tested. And, the church wanted to what's the ironic part is when I was arrested, my camera operator was trying to get arrested as well. Cause he's like, this is ridiculous. And they threatened to arrest him, but they would not arrest him. They arrested me, but he had his hands behind his back. He's like, put the cuffs on. I'm ready to go. Like, this is ridiculous. And they would not arrest him. They only wanted to arrest me, which for some reason, I think they thought of it as like, if we get this guy, it proves our point. And so they tried to throw the book at me. I had 5 court dates in Texas. I flew out for 3 of them, I think. And then the judge gave me the most lenient sentence he could possibly give me, which was 3 months probation. So I could technically go back to that church now. And so, Ed, I'm going to come visit you at some point. And I can go back to all their campuses now, but I was on probation for 3 months. I could not go to any of their campuses or his house. I guess he was scared I was going to go to his house and bring him a cake or something. But yeah, so yeah, 3 months probation that's passed. So it's being expunged off my record.
I do laugh about this, and I know you laugh too, but honestly, from Ed Young's point of view, if he's unscrupulous, as you say, and he's digging deep, digging greedily and too deep, and he's making all this money, then you are probably his worst nightmare.
100%. Yeah. And I laugh because the show's done. And I tell people all the time, all these guys would have had to do is say, hey, here's Carla's phone number. Call her. She's an accountant. Okay, cool. See you later. But they wouldn't even give me a phone number to call. Like, that's the most mind bending thing is it's like, just give me a phone number. Like, let me talk to someone and then we'll take that story where it needs to go. But instead of even remotely giving me a number, they doubled their security that day and made sure they had all these cowboy cops who most of them, because we have PIs, looked into their records. Like, most of them are not allowed to carry as a private security on those properties. They didn't have the proper training or the licenses. And so it's like everything about that, these little church militias is hilarious because none of it's above par, And
Joseph Smith had a church militia.
There you go. I didn't know that.
You didn't?
What were they called?
They're called the Nauvoo Irregulars. No, it was called the Nauvoo Legion.
He was the general of the Nauvoo Legion. He was the mayor of Nauvoo. He was running for president, and he was the prophet. He was the head of the Kirtland anti-banking company.
He was the dog catcher. He did it all.
His middle name was Narcissist, right?
Apffel, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah. So I guess more churches need militias.
Yeah. Oh, they do to protect what? This is the big thing.
Yeah.
What
They're
are
not
you protecting
against shooters? They're protecting against loudmouth wise guys like you coming in and pointing out the fact that nobody knows how much this preacher's making.
Yeah, and they're protecting, this is the big one, an institution built on top of Jesus. They're not protecting Jesus or his message. They're protecting their machine, this costly institution that they've built. And how dare you question that institution? How dare you question this $40 million a year business that's paid for off of generous donors?
Okay, when you say it like that, it just seems so obvious. Chris, what do you think is the psychology that goes into this that allows these people to do this and not see what it is they're doing?
So it's a pretty deep thing. There was there's been studies done on this, and Nathan's talked about this quite a bit. But when you look at people who are politicians, you look at people who are pastors, lawyers, not all lawyers, but like a lot of people that want to be in that spotlight, in that center, and be glorified. They have narcissistic personality disorder. And so they're psychopathic.
Clinical psychopaths.
And it's this a lot of these narcissistic traits where
I prefer psychopath.
You can't get caught, right? So you're building a house on lies. Lie after lie after lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. That's a very difficult thing to unwind. And you getting exposed is the greatest fear of your life. And you have built a business off of lies. You have built a business off of darkness. You have built a business off of manipulation and everything. And when you do that, when you're supposed to be the one who's getting glorified, really, God's supposed to be getting glorified here. But in this instance, they're the ones getting glory. When you drive up on stage in a Ferrari and say, God gave me a Ferrari because I am a Ferrari. I mean, come on. Like, that's not a humble servant. Could you imagine Jesus, walking up to people and saying something like that?
No, he was more into camels.
Colts.
There's a great book that Chris is probably referencing called The Wisdom of Psychopaths. And it talks about clinical psychopaths. And it's from a professor who studied psychopaths his whole career. And one of the top 10 job titles for clinical psychopaths. So someone he would clinically diagnose as a psychopath is clergy, or someone who works high level at a religious organization. Yeah. So clinical psychopaths.
Very interesting.
But a lot of them.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think what Nathan forgot to mention, which I thought is one of the most adorable parts of that story of him getting arrested is, and you'll see this in the show, how he gets picked up right when he walks in. They had a massive photo of Nathan after Nathan reached out to the CFO multiple times, and they nicknamed him Hot Dog. So you can imagine on the radios, hot dogs here, hot dogs here. He's got 2 signs. He's dangerous.
Hot dogs coming through the front door.
Yeah.
Actually, hot dogs coming through the back door.
Oh, gee.
That's a little radio traffic I'd like to hear. But
Oh my
regardless,
gosh.
we better get
It's
to this next
Wednesday.
clip.
It's Wednesday. It's not Friday.
No. It's true. It's true. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said hot dog.
Uh,
Okay. Now this is a headline in Fortune magazine. A church that counts Justin Bieber and Russell Wilson as members is accused of requiring employees to donate part of earnings as a tithe. I didn't know that Justin and Russell were Mormons.
No. This is a non-denominational Christian church out of the Pacific Northwest. So
Really? A non-denominational church actually requires tithing?
Yep.
Oh, they have a lot of expenses.
Yep. So there was a big lawsuit that an employee filed against this church because she was on hard times, and they were going to fire her if she didn't give their 10%. So think about that. You're paying me to my labor. I give 30% to the government or whatever, and then I'm also giving 10% back to you as I'm working and giving you my time and energy. And time.
That doesn't seem weird at all, does it? That sounds like
a BYU professor. That's just another Wednesday for a BYU professor.
I will say something that I found really interesting as I walked the BYU campuses, and maybe you guys can fill me in on this. All the young kids doing all the landscaping, is that volunteer efforts? Like there was cute little, 21-year-old girls weed whacking like everywhere. It was very bizarre to me.
Where was this going on?
On the BYU campus.
Well, they might be on probation for something, but
okay.
I don't know. Bill, you didn't go to BYU. I didn't go to BYU.
No, but to what we were just saying, Nathan and Chris, employees for the church, first off, they're paid less for that job than people out in the private sector. And also they're, at least at various times, I'm not sure if it's currently done this way, but at various times, they definitely have to pay tithing. And at various times, that tithing was directly removed back from their check. They didn't really have any say on whether they paid it or not. So that's why we were laughing previously, is because what you just described here on the screen is every piece of employment for the church.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's why I said I didn't know they were Mormon.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Justin Bieber, to give a little background, Justin Bieber, the head pastor of this church is Justin Bieber's pastor, quote unquote, spiritual advisor or whatever. And then Russell Wilson, I think he's a football QB, an NFL QB. He sits on.
Even I know that one, but that's because I'm from the Seattle area.
Okay. So he sat on the board of this church. So a pro football player who doesn't have a seminary degree or, he throws footballs, is good at it, I guess. Well. Okay. Not very well. But he, for some reason,
sometimes he's incredible, but a lot of times he's really awful.
High tithe payers get some privilege, don't they?
Yes. So he.
I was hoping the pastor, as a spiritual advisor, could teach Russell Wilson how to throw a football.
Well, there you go. Or God, But he sat on the board of this church, so he made decisions which would eventually be selling off $62 million worth of real estate without any congregant approval, just because they wanted to build an app and buy some homes. So Russell Wilson sat on the board. And the ties on this board is very interesting. There's a woman named Lou Taylor out of Hollywood, who is a money manager for some very interesting people, including P. Diddy. And P. Diddy's kind of in trouble right now. And then as well as Britney Spears. And for some reason, that money manager in Hollywood also sat on the board of this church up in Seattle. Fascinating.
Okay, well.
Let me put it on.
I don't think he's in Seattle anymore, but he used to be.
He's in New York now. You talking about Russell?
Yeah, he's
Wilson?
been around.
Yeah.
Religion now has to compete in that neutral public square for consumers, for customers.
The Bible says that God will supply that need according. When we pray to survive, endure, make it through, that's a sick prayer.
Tithing is a test. He gave his son, and you want to argue about 10%.
We do not want this church or any other church destroyed by the government.
We're not going to answer the question. You answer our question.
When I give to God, I am simply taking my hands off that
which already belongs to him.
You are what I call a kiddie pool Christian.
So that's the end of episode 4, I believe.
All of this sounds very familiar to Mormon ears, the kinds of messages that we get about paying tithing. That, it's not ours. Everything that God gives us is God's, and all we're doing is giving him back 10% of what is already his.
Okay, I love that idea, right? It's pretty consistent through denominations, and I'll include Mormonism and non-denominationalism, Baptist, you name it. So here's my question. Well said. Who put you as the middleman of those resources? Who put this church as the middleman to collect that 10%?
Well, in Mormonism, God did.
I bet it's not just the Mormon church that says that. The God ruse.
In the last days, you guys, these are the guys who have stewardship. It's their responsibility to decide how these funds are used, and it's nobody else's business.
That's crazy. But if God demands that, shouldn't God be the one saying what's done with it? So
God is notoriously incommunicative.
I have him on speed dial. He's number 1.
Well, you see, then you need to be telling people to donate to you, so God will tell you what to do with the money. And maybe in a sense, that's what's happening, though not so crudely put, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, so that's what this episode in particular is about. It's okay, if that is your argument, which we break down tithing, and there's a fallacy to that outside of Mormonism, because the prophet can do whatever he wants and change laws and regulations. But in mainline Christianity, we destroy the idea of tithing. If you're a non-denominational Christian, Baptist, we tear the Jewish and Christian scholars in the show disintegrate the idea that you need to give 10%. Like if you're a Christ follower in a New Testament and you believe in the New Testament, nowhere does Christ ever say for you to legalistically give 10% to a temple, which, in 70 AD, the Jewish temple is destroyed. Rome comes in and flattens it to the ground. That temple is no longer there. You can't even offer your tithes and your sacrifices because Judaism of the time needed a temple to make sacrifices. And so Christ gives very clear directives in the New Testament on how to give and who to give to and who to support. But tithing, he never mentions tithing outside of when he tells a Jew, a practicing landowning Jew, to go and tithe, because that is the law of Judaism at that moment. But so what we build there is we build this argument for who puts you as the middleman. Even if your argument is give 10%, who puts you as that middleman?
Yes. Well, I didn't ask for it, but God had required it of me.
Yeah.
In fact, he told me if I didn't, he would use a sword on me.
Oh.
You'd be removed from the list of God's children and not protected in the day of vengeance, as said by the leader of the LDS Church.
I would no longer be written in the Lamb's Book of Life.
The day of vengeance and burning.
Yes.
Russell Nelson.
Now, here's this next one. I don't know if you recognize it just from the still, Nathan, but do you know what this clip is about?
Yeah, this is in episode 1. This is basically creating our argument for what we're tackling in regards to denominationalism and the underlying ethos from the 70s. Because what we present is this modern church that most people go to is not that old. Christianity is 2,000 years old. Judaism's 3,500 years old. What we see as church. So what a Mormon, when they walk into their local ward or into the temple or the conference or whatever, like, this is not reality. This is your reality, but this is not truth necessarily. This is not the history of Christianity. This is just a modern byproduct of it. Just like a mega church is a modern byproduct, just like a small rural Episcopalian church is a byproduct. We might think of this as church, but this is not the culminating quote unquote church or whatever. And it's not the culminating quote unquote theology. So Mormonism theology is different than a non-denominational theology, right? Is different from a Calvinist. It's like, but they all believe vehemently that their theology is the right theology. And so what we're trying to present is, okay, there's this underlying theological code that spans denomination, which is give us your money and we are authority. Do not question us.
And there's a familiar face at the end of this clip.
There is, yeah.
Time for some of you to get out of the milk into the meat of God's word and begin to understand what Christianity is entailing.
Glory to God, you're not bound to this church. In the name of Jesus.
The truth is, many of us are attached to this thing that God called us to manage, and watch this, give away.
Putting God first in all things is the basics. God has to be first in your finances.
It's wrong to criticize leaders of the church, even if the criticism is true.
There's my hero.
Yeah. So we're basically presenting the argument that, hey, your money's not yours. Give it to God and we'll take it. And then, hey, don't criticize us, even if it's true. Whoops.
Here's the thing about your documentary is that, one of the many things, but from a Mormon point of view, it is very easy and expected of many Mormons to take something that's critical of their religion and write it off as anti-Mormonism.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if that's as easy to do when you're not just coming at Mormons, but at all kinds of religions, Christian religions that are doing this kind of thing with money.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just one voice among many. Yeah. I would think it would be harder for a TBM, true believing Mormon, to be able to say, oh, that's just an anti-Mormon then.
Yeah. So there's a gentleman in the show called Dave Croto. He's the dean of Columbia Seminary in North Carolina. Or South Carolina, I can't remember. Brilliant guy.
I was confused too.
Yeah, he wrote his book. He wrote his dissertation on tithing. He speaks Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, like brilliant man. And he's in the show. And he watched the showdown, and he texted me, and he said I didn't. So he's a Baptist. I believe he's a Baptist. And so when we first met, he's like, I don't understand why you're involving the LDS Church. Like Baptists don't consider them Christians. They have the Book of Mormon. They're not Christ followers necessarily. And he texted me. He goes, I fully understand why you included the LDS Church now, because you're not going after one denomination. You're literally looking at the spectrum and saying there's a systemic problem as a whole. It's not one church, one denomination. It is a systemic problem.
It's harder when you're a Mormon and you already hate these other guys. Hate's too strong a word, but you already know that they're apostate. And so nothing that they do would surprise you. And yeah, those are the kind of guys who would do exactly this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then you get one of your own lumped in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I say it in the beginning of episode 1, I say, if you believe this 66 book canon, judgment begins with the church, and I hold my church, my faith, to the highest standards possible. And that is why I'm looking at Christianity. And so, yeah, that's yeah. And I look at it as, I call it the kaleidoscope of Christianity. It's not a single denomination. It's 44,000 denominations and growing. Christianity is a massive business, $1 trillion a year business.
Bill, we got to get a piece of this.
We should start a church. I think that's what we should do. I think we'll get rich.
The First Church of Radio Free Mormon is in order.
There you go.
And actually, it will be red wine and dark chocolate.
So this is what's so cool about becoming a church too. If I'm a nonprofit, a secular nonprofit, if I want to feed the homeless, I have to request a 501(c)(3) status from the IRS. So it takes years sometimes to get this status. And so I'm sitting in limbo as I want to help the hungry in my city. But if I want to be a church, I can just raise my hand and say, I'm a church. I don't even have to go to the IRS. Just because I claim I'm a church, and I get religious tax exempt status, which means I can file the corporate documents with my state. I can get my EIN number, and boom, I can immediately start taking donations. And the IRS does not even know I exist. I do not need that tax exempt status from the IRS. Boom, I'm in business. And I am literally an avatar to the government, to the federal government, because they do not know I exist. They can drive by my building and say, man, there's the Church of Nathan, or the Church of Radio Free Mormon. But in our computer, there's no Radio Free Mormon church. So it means the only way you'll ever get in trouble is if you have enough people file complaints with the IRS. Then they can open an investigation into you, which you learn in the show is basically a black box anyways. So it's 1 in a billion that you're going to get busted. But I can say right now, I'm a church, and banks, the state will see me and go, yep, you're a church, and give me all the tax exempt status and all the exemptions that the LDS church has. So you're far better off to start a church than any other business, because no one even knows you exist.
This is very instructive. Maybe if I do this, I'm going to call it the Church of What's Happening Now.
There you go.
If anybody remembers that one. Bill, you said you were about ready to say something, perhaps?
I was just going to say that if you have no morals, if you have no problem being a dirty, deceitful person and you just want to be rich, starting a church and being charismatic is the best way to go about it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, Chris and I have had long conversations with literally individuals that have spent decades in prison, for what, that whether they say they're innocent of the crime or not. But we've also talked to ex-mafiosos, and they say today the religious exemption is the best structure to run a mafia, just from a legal standpoint. It's better than doing it under the radar now, because the regulations and the exemptions and the precedent that is pushed through, which you learn in the show, a lot of this isn't even law. It's just precedent from the last 50 years. It's created an ecosystem where, to Bill's point, the darkest, shadiest people can just, if they're charismatic and loud, can just run mafias. And there's a lot of stuff that we didn't even put back in the show because we believed people wouldn't even believe it. We're talking about drug running and gun running to Israel. We're talking about money drops in the Cayman Islands. We're talking about poisoning people that are going to out you and literally murder. Like, we have all the evidence of all of this, but we were like, we're not going to put it in these episodes because people wouldn't believe it. It would seem too, reality TV or too like cops. It's Christians wouldn't even be able to palate. A lot of people wouldn't even be able to palate what's going on behind the scenes. And so we dumbed it, that we simplified it, because you wouldn't believe that, a private plane with pastors who are doing massive evangelist outreaches in Israel have storages of illegal guns and drugs, in their holds. Would you? But that was happening.
It's mildly ironic.
Yeah. All in the name of Jesus.
Yes, exactly. Gun running in the name of Jesus.
Yeah.
What's this clip about? Is this a basketball shot about to be taken?
I thought it was Russell Wilson, but it's not. No, it's one thing with the show is we don't just present the bad. We also want to show the good, because our goal is to encourage people to give and donate and support, because that's something Christ told us to do. He told us to help the needy, the poor, the widow, the marginalized, the prisoner. So this is a clip from an organization in Uganda run by a man named Wilfred. And he was born in the slums, raised in the slums. And when he was a kid, he took in an orphan, and he was living in a little 10 by 10 foot room. And so he brought in an orphan, and all of a sudden everybody started bringing orphans to him and his friends. And in Uganda, 10% of the population are orphans. So 2.3 million Ugandans are orphans, and there's 23 million people in Uganda. And so it's a major problem. And so this is just a part of his story, because I'll tell you this right now, his entire annual operating budget is less than a lot of pastors' housing allowances. So their housing allowances are just additional, payouts on top of their salaries. So this guy's entire annual operating budget is less than a lot of pastors' housing allowances. And he's got 800 orphans getting educations, getting college educations. And he is literally teaching them how to be moral individuals. And they're starting to they're getting access into the leadership in government. And he's like, Nathan, some of my orphan kids who would usually wind up dead are sitting next to the president of Uganda, and they're accountable, they're transparent, they're honorable men and women. And he's like, so I take the wounded and the helpless, and we're turning them into people that are running countries and, family men and women. And so this is part of showing one of the good.
Well, God bless you. Was that total amount? Was that the 20,000 that you mentioned somewhere? I remember seeing that.
The housing allowance?
Something about
the 20,000 a month, you mean?
Yeah. So this guy's operating budget is $20,000 a month, and he has 800 orphans with housing, food, full-time school, and their school their academic curriculum is in the top 10% of Uganda. So these orphans are getting they're testing out at the top 10% in Uganda. And I'll tell you this right now, as an American kid, you know, we often have this sense of elitism because we live in an amazing country that allows for a lot. But you go over there, these individuals working at these orphanages have PhDs. You know, you're sitting down with teachers and they're like, oh yeah, I have a PhD in this, or I studied this at Notre Dame. And you're like, wait, what? Like these, what you almost think is, you know, as I'd almost written a couple of them off because they were so quiet and humble. And then we're having dinner and they're like, oh no, I have a PhD in philosophy from Notre Dame. And you're like, wait, wow. It was just incredible. It really put me personally in my place because I'm like, I'm sitting with dozens of teachers that are so educated, educating 800 orphans, and their entire operating budget is less than the pastor who had me arrested's monthly housing allowance. So it just shows we've missed the mark on where we give resources.
Yes.
It frustrates me so bad that an operating budget for something like this is $20,000 a month. 20 grand a month. Hello. It's a rounding error for a lot of nonprofits.
So sorry, I haven't seen these in a while. So yeah, but that's my conclusion to his story is you see this amazing operation that's so well refined, 110 full-time staff. They have a medical clinic. They deliver babies for the community for free, 24-hour medical clinic, and their operating budget. Ironically, that shot moves into me heading to church, which you saw earlier, because come to find out that pastor was taking $20,000 a month in a housing allowance. Here's the kicker: in 2005. So 20 years ago, he was paying himself $20,000 a month. Since then, he ordained his lawyer. So his lawyer now takes
that. This is just gravy on top of his salary.
Gravy on top, untaxed gravy. So it's got to be higher now because his mortgage on his Dallas home is almost $70,000 a month, and then $70,000 a month. And then he also has a house in the Florida Keys that's 1.5 times more expensive. So he also has given his daughter his wife a housing allowance now. His general counsel became ordained, so he has a housing allowance, and now his son takes a housing allowance. But Scott Weasel takes a housing allowance, but no one knows what these housing allowances are. It's not public knowledge.
I want a housing allowance. Damn it.
It's a great way to offset your tax burden because you could say, hey, this parsonage, parsonages are different. Parsonages are owned by the church. But housing allowances mean I can go buy my own house. And this is what's cool. We have the document that talks about what the housing allowances can be used for. So the church will pay for your down payment. It'll pay for your home, your mortgage. It'll pay for your property taxes. It'll pay for your household cleaners. And it lists all the way down to light bulbs. It'll pay your HOA dues. It'll pay your yard maintenance. So literally the church will polish this massive mansion, whatever you want, and everything's paid for down to the light bulbs. And it describes that in the documents in that house. So Ed Young doesn't even need to go buy light bulbs with his, I don't even know what his salary is. No one knows, but nope. Like this is his housing allowance. And then his son, his wife, and the general counsel and Scott Weasel all take housing allowances.
Wow.
You can bet your ass that in the stipend that LDS leaders get, there aside to that is a housing allowance that would explain how somebody can work for the Deseret News and then end up with multiple expensive home properties when it's all said and done.
Boyd K. Packer.
And Monson too, who also wasn't a wealthy man as far as I know, and ended up with tons of properties.
Well, and here's the kicker. You could stand in your pulpit on a Sunday morning and say, hey, I take a modest $125,000 salary. And it's technically not a lie because you're
say that with a straight face though. I take a modest $125,000 salary.
And then there's also clothing. I'm not going to tell you about my $50,000 a year clothing allowance.
Because I'm a Lamborghini, damn it.
I know.
Yeah, you are.
$1,000
And that,
a year.
yeah,
is
that doesn't
modest for a
include
Lamborghini.
the car allowance, the clothing allowance, my security allowance. Nope, that's just that. So that's where you can offset a lot of your quote unquote salary, to where you can, with a straight face, stand on a stage and say, I only make X.
Well, I tell you what, we're at an hour and 25 minutes into this. I don't want to reveal too much to the audience. We've got a bunch of there's several more clips that are left. I want to revisit our promo of your show and also on Friday and our promo bill, which we forgot in the past 2 episodes we've been on for what we're going to be doing next week. We don't want to forget that. Are there any other clips that you especially want to get to, Nathan or Chris?
Bill, could you pull up the clips for me and I can just look at them?
And while you're going to pull those up.
Or here, I can pull them up on my end, so it doesn't.
Yeah, I can pull them up right here. So maybe
beautiful
on the left-hand side, I can probably make this just a touch bigger. Let's see here.
Nathan, the one where you've got the smiley face in the investigation room.
Oh, yeah.
That's the last one. I took a special umbrage at that one, Nathan.
Oh, did you?
Is that this one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I get.
You'll have to explain that one.
Yeah, yeah. This is a good one.
All right, let me play it. Do you want to set this up at all?
This has been a constant experience for me throughout this process. So I would give olive branches to everybody, even the bad players, even the ones where I have them on fraud. We have them on literal fraud. I would always give them olive branches and say, hey, you're a byproduct of the system and the architecture here, just like me. Like, I'd love to talk. Like, I'd love to put you on camera and say, hey, yeah, we've kind of screwed up here, but we can right this ship together. We can bring accountability in. And this is the byproduct of all those olive branches.
What are we going to do with you? I keep on running in to lawyers.
Yeah, so everybody always sicks their lawyers on me. And so that comes out of a scene where I had sent a really sweet, I'd called a big pastor in the US. He answered his phone. I don't lie to anybody. I told him who I was. He knew about me. And he said, well, before I delve into this, I want to build a relationship, and a relationship is based on trust. So shoot me an email and we'll start a dialogue. And I said, awesome. So I shot him an email, and then instead of him emailing me back, his lawyer does. And his lawyer just tears into me. And this email at that point is 1.5 years old. Filmmaking takes a long time. And in the email, the lawyer goes, clearly you've already made your judgment about your biased interpretation of how we use money. And so it's just funny because I'm like, this call and this email was 1.5 years ago. I didn't have my biased interpretation then. I have it now. I have my conclusion now. But you learn about all this in the show, and so it's fascinating. There's one more clip that I think is really good. What we do is I sit down with some of the most amazing historians in the show, because what I want to present is history, because you have to understand what happened throughout Jewish history and Christian history to know how we got here. So that black and white shots one, that's Charles Spurgeon. I'd rather go down and show the candle one. We can start on this one. And so just so people can get a flavor for how we present history in the show.
It'll come up here in just a second.
Cool.
I hope. There we go.
I see them in Rome now, sitting around drinking their fine Italian wines, laughing about the stupid beer-drinking Germans whose money has paid for it all. He is the man regarded as having triggered the events that lead to the division of the Catholic Church into what we now call the Roman Catholic Church and various Protestant groups.
Greetings, Father. I've come to request an indulgence for my mother.
Sale of indulgences was, of course, only one of the ways in which the church effectively taxed the people. because the Pope was virtually bankrupt at this point.
And so one thing that we present in the show is the idea of giving or tithing or taxation has never been consistent from Jesus on earth and dying on that cross to present day. The institution, and we present this in the show throughout history, at whatever time in history would create ways to raise money and demand money from people based on what it needed to do what it wanted to do at that time. So the Pope was building the Vatican. He was waging wars. He was bankrupt. So he's like, shoot, I got to figure out how to raise more money. So a couple monks would look at the Bible and go, oh, we can sell these indulgences. And they'd figure out some way to package it to start selling indulgences. And so the institution throughout history has always created ways to demand people to give them money based on what they want to do. It's never been biblical, if that makes sense. And so we want to drill that idea into people's head, because if you go to the Mormon church and they demand 10%, if you go to a non-denominational church and they say, give generously, there's no consistency. And so to your point, like, read the Bible and actually figure out what it says for yourself, because if you really demand tithing, you should be demanding 23.3%, not 10%. And so you start dissecting the tithe laws and you're like, this is all bull. Like, if you really want to preach tithing, you got to preach that there's 3 tithes. And that means you got to give 23.3%. And it's because
one of President Nelson any ideas. Okay, Nathan.
I think he should, man. Come on, Nelson, triple down. This is your time. I'll help you with the literature. As long as you make me a profit. That's my deal. But yeah, that's the thing is giving has never been consistent. It's whatever the machine and the apparatus is hungry for at that time. And yeah, so it's a fascinating journey through the history of Christianity and Judaism.
Fantastic. So we're gonna premiere our thing, then we're gonna go back and premiere your thing a second time, but then we want people to call in. Can I? Are we able to open the studios? The phone number, although we're using the phone less and less, is 662-667-6667 or 662 Mormons, or you can use the StreamYard link, which is handily available somewhere that Bill's put it. There it is, right there. Where do people find that, Bill? Is that in the live chat?
That is in the live chat, yes. So you'll see it right there to the right of the YouTube video playing. You can just copy and paste that into a URL. You can show up in the studio using your computer camera and your computer microphone. If you want to be anonymous, just turn the camera off and use a pseudonymous name. Otherwise, just call the number. There you go. Or call the number 662-667-6667.
Fantastic. You got that down to a fine art, Bill.
Look at that. The 2 events we've got coming up, folks, and the Saturday night event is just about sold out. There's maybe a little more than 10 tickets left for that. So that is Saturday night, August 2nd in Salt Lake City. I will put the links for these events. They've been put in the live chat all throughout the evening, but I will put them in there again. So August 2nd here in just like 2 weeks. It's going to be happening, and there's like 12 tickets left, something in that range.
It's Saturday, isn't it?
It is. So, folks, if you're going to want to come to this, you're going to want to grab your tickets immediately. There is a nice dinner provided for that night. We have a lot of good space. We're going to have a lot of fun. RFM, myself, and each of you. So please sign up to show up at that. And then Monday, August 4th, a live studio audience for the Mormon newscast. And there's about maybe 25 or 30 tickets left for this. And so you want to grab these as well if you want to come to that event. That will open, the doors open at 5:30. We'll have a stand-up comedy routine by Ganesh Cherian. And following that will be a live showing of the Mormon newscast. And then we will hang around after that's over for a little munch and mingle in LDS terms there. So
I've never heard of a munch and mingle. Is that a Utah reference? I've only heard of linger longers.
Yeah, there's the linger longer and there's the munch and mingle. They both sound creepy, but that's what we're doing. Anyway, we'd love to see you. That is Monday, August 4th, and you can grab tickets for that as well. As soon as I get done talking here, I'll put both those links in the live chat. And then with that, I'll go back here to the premiere for these guys.
So this is Friday. It's July 25th for the premiere, and you've already described it. So it's going to be episode 3 that's going to premiere at 2 different times, 2 different showings, right? On Friday evening?
Yes.
Yep.
And
so you can
this
just
is in
scan,
West-
you can scan those QR codes right underneath. That's probably the easiest way. It bumps you straight to the Eventbrite links where you can get
Could
the
you
tickets.
scan that off the screen, do you think?
I think so. I was,
My
let's see.
phone's on the recharger, so.
Oh yeah, you can scan it. It works. So yeah, you guys can scan it right off your screen here.
It makes it harder if you're watching it on your phone, but
True.
still, you can figure something out. We got a bright audience.
Well, yeah, or you go to our Religion Business Instagram handle, and it's both links are in our bio. But yeah, Chris will be there. I'll be there. And we're just, what we love is we always say break down echo chambers, because when you sit at your single church, whether that be the LDS church or your non-denominational church, you're just sitting in an echo chamber. We're not here to attack you. We're not here to attack your faith. We're not here to attack your giving. We're here to encourage all of that, but just, hey, we've built these massive, expensive machines, and accountability needs to be in that system. We're human. And this whole conversation is about humans being human. And we will rob Peter to pay Paul. We will take money out of the tithe bucket because, hey, I deserve that steak dinner, to the point where I have a private airplane. And so, yeah, I would love active members to be there. It'll be a fascinating discussion, and I would love active members to be there, because you're going to realize, okay, these guys aren't attacking my faith. They're literally just looking at the machine behind it all. And so, yeah.
By the way, I can make it just a touch easier. Yes, you can certainly do the QR code, but if somebody's like, oh, I don't know how to do that with my phone, with me watching it on the screen, if you go down below the YouTube video in the YouTube description, both the links for the premiere showing 1 at 5:30 to 7 and the premiere showing 2, 7:30 to 9, the links for the Eventbrite registration there for the tickets is in the links. So in the description below. So you can find
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And these are the AMC theaters in West Jordan.
Yep. AMC 12. The exact address is on the Eventbrite link as well.
And this is a multi-part docuseries, but you guys are showing episode 3, you said, which specifically deals with Mormonism.
Yeah, well, Mormonism is throughout. I think Mormonism is in 4 episodes, but episode 3 just has a nice story. Because we break down different parts of. We break down Ensign Peak Advisors and how that was created and why that was created and what it's turned into. We break down the real estate arm of the LDS Church. We look at different buckets, so to speak. And so there's just a nice bucket of the LDS Church. And then there's also Kenneth Copeland is in episode 3. So it's an exciting episode.
We find that Mormonism is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah. In what way? Please.
Well, because we're never going to run out of material, because they're continuing to generate it for us.
True. Yeah. This is what's crazy. The LDS Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, will hit $1 trillion in market assets in the next 10 years. $1 trillion, all in the name of tax exemption and religious exemptions. And so that's what's wild is, okay, we've just created massive machines. And like we talked about it being the perfect vehicle for mafias, it's also the perfect vehicle to build conglomerates and just dominate markets, because you have exemptions that give you, you can outbid people on land. You can outbid builders. It's the perfect vehicle to build conglomerates that have no external accountability.
You can outbid Bill Gates.
You can outbid.
Didn't the Mormons do that?
Mormons did that, by the way. They outbid Bill Gates for a bunch of property in Florida, I think, by the way.
Yeah. So Nathan and I were on Sean Kelly's podcast, and I was talking about that, and no one heard what I was saying. They were just focused on, I'd rather the LDS Church than Bill Gates got that. Bill Gates is this and that. I'm like, I'm not endorsing Bill Gates. It's a comparison of a for-profit business that pays taxes compared to a one with the religious exemptions that pays no taxes. They can afford to come in at a higher price than for-profit companies that have to make a lot more money because they pay taxes on all that. And then the future side of it, property taxes and all that such going forward. So, yeah.
Very good.
Interesting.
Do we have anybody on the line, Bill? I understand we might have somebody on the phone and another in studio.
Yeah, we've got somebody on the phone and then studio. We'll go to the phone first. This is, I believe, Ronnie, who wants to talk about tithing in the Mormon Church. Ronnie, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you great, my friend. Welcome to Mormonism Live.
Okay. Thank you very much. Both you and RFM are heroes. And the two people, the guests you got on, they're heroes because, I mean, what you say is if you know the truth, it'll set you free. And there's no question about that. And let me just say something, whether it's Ensign Peak and the SEC 10-page order that they agreed to, it says specifically in there that they used the Ensign Peak money to pay off two of their for-profit businesses that are going to go bankrupt. But yet, it doesn't faze any of these members of the church. And you know, Bill Real, I talked to you one time before. I told you that when I was 14, I didn't leave because of history. I left when I was 14 because I knew how corrupted tithing was. And these fine gentlemen are exposing it, but it just doesn't seem to faze the members of the church. It's really sad. You know what I mean? I don't know what your take is on it.
Well, as Paul H. Dunn once said, and he's one of my mentors, by the way, as Paul H. Dunn once said, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
There's also
the problem is you have to be in a space where you're willing to hear it. You're able to hear it. A lot of people are not. But I think that the story that Nathan told, and I'll ask him to talk about it, to touch on it again, is instructive, which has to do with some of those security guards at that church where he got himself arrested at. Because that got their attention. They started thinking maybe this isn't all okay, didn't they, Nathan? Some of it.
Yeah. I actually, like, as I was sitting handcuffed, the big guy with the beard, he was nodding his head by the end of it. And he was pulling his phone out, nervous. You could tell he was just not excited because I had presented a pretty sound argument. And so you can, Ronnie, I do think you can convince people, but to RFM's point, you have to be ready to hear it. And it goes, Bruce Wydeck talks about strategic ignorance in the show. And half of my family is raised LDS, and a lot of them have left the church for the issues you had about tithing. But then some of them they'd rather be strategically ignorant and drink the Kool-Aid still. Because I always say these institutions, because the legal architecture is so shoddy, it's a house of cards. So if you flick the card out of tithing, the whole thing collapses, because then it's just the whole thing collapses.
Fortunately, the LDS Church has gotten to the point where it will never collapse because it has escaped the Earth's gravitational pull financially.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what happens now unless the federal government goes in and goes, "We got you. You don't get to keep this anymore."
Or one of these lawsuits finally actually gets past first base.
I don't think it happens that way, RFM. So to what you spoke to, I don't remember who it was. Some guy with last name Swift, I think, is credited with this, but it's you cannot reason a person out of a position he did not reason himself into. And I think that's what happens. Matters of belief that are faith-based, even if demonstrably untrue, it's near impossible to get somebody to be shaken out from that belief. It's just such a difficult thing.
Yeah, and that's due to because of once you are like Bednar and the rest of them people up there, I call clowns, you get in that inner circle and you think they're going to give up whatever they got because they're not going to tell you what they make, what perks they get. You know that just as well as I do. You know the truth and it set you free. It set me free. But a lot of these members, until they actually see something that affects them, they're not going to get out of nothing. They're just going to believe whatever they tell them. Oh, it's all done by the Spirit. You know how it works.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you, sir.
It strikes me that, yeah, Jesus talks about the truth making you free, but in Mormonism, my considerable experience has been that in Mormonism, the truth will enslave you.
James, you are down below. I don't see you down there anymore. It looks like you left, but do come back. We'll certainly get you back into the show. Also, I've got another call here, so we can go to this. This is another James. James, are you there?
Maybe it's Stephen.
Yeah, I called because I got a message saying a call, so I got off of there and just called.
Oh, I got you.
Thought maybe it was James the Lesser.
Oh, okay.
James the greater and James the lesser.
That's right. The lesser, definitely the lesser. No, I was just saying that I attended Ed Young's church with some friends like over 20 years ago.
Wow. Really?
And back there in Grapevine, yeah. And back then, even he had stuff on a stage. I remember him having a sermon about the whole armor of God, and they bought this big old tank on the stage, and they had like camo, and he used that as a prop.
Mm-hmm.
And
a tank.
And his father, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were saying his father was the pastor of the Second Baptist Church in Houston, which is a huge Baptist church.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the youth minister there, and then he got the fellowship there in Grapevine, and that's kind of how he started.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, and there's a big lawsuit right now at Second Baptist, his father's church, because they quietly rewrote the bylaws to basically turn it into a self-governing church, and it's got tens of millions in assets. And so it's just these brothers now that control all these massive mega churches, and the congregants are fuming. So hopefully something comes of that lawsuit, because the congregants are absolutely fuming at Second Baptist that they have no vote or say anymore, where some of them have given millions over the years, and their rights were just yanked.
Mm.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even then there was conflict between like the older members of the church who were like, I guess, 40s and 50s, and they just felt like he was trying to just only target his message to like the 20-year-olds,
mm-hmm.
and that was even back then. So he wasn't as famous there now as he was then.
Ed Young's really good at targeting. One thing that they do at his church is they give out where a lot of churches do. They give out first timer cards. So you're a first timer, go by our booth, fill out this card. We're gonna give you a gift. So they get you there with a gift. Uh-huh. So consumerism at its finest, and it's usually a coffee cup branded with the logo of the church. But they make you put your address down, your home address. And there was a woman at the welcome booth who was really uncomfortable with this. And she goes, I don't like to ask people for their home addresses. And her superior said, well, you need to, because we have a firm that does data and looks up how much equity they have in their home. And if they have above, it was either 500,000 or $1 million in equity in the house, you get a personal call from Ed Young. And I've talked with,
wow,
what's up?
I said, ooh, a personal call.
Personal call, because they know, hey, I can get some money out of this guy.
I'm going to let you go, caller. Thank you very much for the phone call, James.
Yes, James.
Thank you, James.
Okay, bye.
Take it easy. Somebody's asking, has Nathan looked into Mary Crosby's church in Salt Lake City? Mary is on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
Oh no, but that'd be amazing. I'm gonna Google that right now, or take a note of that right now.
Yeah, so there you go.
I'm sure it's on the up and up.
And that's it for the calls and folks down below, my friend.
Thank you so much, Bill. Nathan, Chris will give you the final word here. Everybody, by the way, Friday, if you got anything available, any freedom at all, any movement in your schedule, your calendar, please go see this show. This is going to be great. You're going to be there not only with Nathan, but also with Chris.
Yeah, Chris is flying out.
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah,
the red carpet, get to see a lot of similar, like-minded people to you, and maybe even Ed Young will show up. Who knows?
I hope. It'd be amazing.
All right. Well, thank you again very much, you guys, and good luck. Best of luck to you on this this venture. I hope it goes great on Friday night and with the streaming. I know I'm going to be getting this and watching it. I've already watched some of it, and Nathan was nice enough to allow me to watch a couple episodes for free, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And Chris, great to have you on the show. Bill, you're wonderful as always. Everybody, thanks again. We'll see you next week at 6 o'clock p.m. Mountain Time for another great episode of Mormonism Live. Good night, everybody.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.